Should the Royals try and trade Brady Singer this offseason? We'll dive into it next on Locked On Royals.
You are Locked On Royals, your daily Kansas City Royals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are tuned into Locked On Royals on the Locked On Podcast Network. As always, I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter or X at JohnnyJ_15. That's at JOHNYJ_15. You also can find us wherever you get your podcast. That can be Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts. We're on Odyssey, and we're on YouTube. Just be sure to hit that follow button and subscribe. If you're a first-time listener and you want to know a little bit more about me and this show, I am based here in Kansas City. I work at Sports Radio 810 WHB, doing some hosting, some co-hosting, and a little bit of producing as well. But when it comes to this podcast, when you click on this link, you know that you're going to be getting 30 straight minutes of Royals baseball. Today's show is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off on your first purchase. This has been a topic of conversation that we have gone over numerous times over really the course of an entire year, I feel like. I mean, if you went back 365 days and brought up a couple of our episodes here on Locked On Royals, I think you would have stumbled upon an episode titled, Should the Royals Trade Brady Singer? Or at least along those lines. And once again, as we enter this offseason, this is going to be another talking point. This is going to need to be another crossroads, really, that the Royals are going to be facing when it comes to Brady Singer. Because the reality of what the Royals have at their rotation is two frontline guys you know that are going to be back, Cole Ragans and Seth Lugo. That's not negotiable. You know for a fact that both those guys are under contract. They'll be the number one and the number two. The next question becomes, can they bring Michael Wacha back? And I've already expressed on this podcast before, I do think the Royals are going to be bringing back Michael Wacha on some form of a multi-year extension. Then you get to Brady Singer. And the question I believe that JJ Picollo and Scott Sharp and everybody in the Royals front office need to be asking themselves is, can Brady Singer either replicate 2024? Can he give you those same numbers again? Or B, can he bolster your lineup by trading him at value right now? Those are the two questions I think that make the most sense when you are evaluating trading or not trading Brady Singer. If your answer to question number one is yes, then I think you hang on to Brady Singer. I think if you can confidently say what Brady Singer did in 2024 is what he's going to do in 2025, I think it's fine to keep Brady Singer in this rotation. It's a guy you can count on every fifth day. You're not going to have to gamble on a guy like Alec Marsh taking a big step forward or having to spend money on somebody to come in and replace a guy like Brady Singer. If that's the answer to your question, then I think you hang on to him. If the answer is no, if you feel like Brady Singer was benefiting from being a number 4 and he got lucky, some of the advanced metrics don't support him, and the second half regression was more of who he is and not so much the first half surge, then I think you trade him. Because what you're going to find out among a lot of teams in baseball, people will be desperate for pitching. And I think more than that, they'll be desperate for pitching coming from the Royals. Because how did the Royals go from 106 losses to the second round in the postseason? It was their starting pitching. So if you are a team that missed out on the postseason, that feels like you're a pitcher or two away in the rotation, why would you not make a play for Brady Singer? You know, he's still affordable. He's a guy that could easily pencil in as a number 3, number 4. He did at least pitch in the postseason once to one batter, and it was Aaron Judge, and he struck him out. And he's had multiple years at the big league level, so there's not a lot to gamble on. It's not like he had one successful season and everything else was terrible. He's had some mediocre seasons. He's had some above average seasons. So if the answer to your question, as I said, was no, you have to trade him. You have to capitalize on the value while it's high. And somebody like a Cincinnati, right, that fell somewhat short of making it to the postseason. Somebody like a Pittsburgh, who wants to round out the rest of the rotation that has Paul Skeens, Jared Jones, and Mitch Keller, you could capitalize on something like that. You look at somebody like maybe Toronto, or look at the National League side, somebody like the Giants. You just get more stability there. You can capitalize and add an everyday bat to your lineup. At least I believe so. Bare minimum, you're adding a guy that can platoon a little bit. And then you get to that point of, well, if you're going to trade Brady Singer, who's the one that steps up, right? Who's the guy that takes his spot? And I think the first crack at it would be somebody like Alec Marsh, right? And if you believe, kind of to throw in a third question here for evaluating Brady Singer, if you believe Alec Marsh can take that big step forward, then I don't think it really matters if you feel like Brady Singer can replicate what he did in 2024. Because if you believe that Alec Marsh can give you what Brady Singer did, well, there's a cheaper option, and you can trade Brady Singer to get you a bat. So that part of it makes me feel like the Royals have options, right? You can keep Brady Singer and feel stabilized at the number 4 spot, or you can gamble that Alec Marsh is going to be much better next year, give you anywhere from 170 to 180 innings, have an ERA sub 4, and maybe have a 8.5 to 9 strikeout per 9, have less than a 4.2 walk per 9. I mean, you get those numbers. I don't think I'm going to complain too much with what Alec Marsh would give you at the number 4 spot. And it also leads into a little bit of a conversation we're going to talk about in our second segment in today's episode. But for Brady Singer, I don't think there's a bigger trade chip right now on the team. You're not going to trade anybody, in my opinion, in your lineup. You're not going to be trading away MJ Melendez. I don't think the value's there. You're not trading away Kyle Isbell. You're not trading away Renfroe. You're not trading Garcia. You're not trading Bobby Witt. You're not trading Massey, Vinny, Salvi, Freddie Fermin, probably. It's going to come down to pitchers. And if you feel like you've got an abundance of talent, even coming up through AAA, this might be the time to capitalize. Because I'm also one of those people that isn't sold that Brady Singer is going to repeat what he did in 2024. And the Royals need bats in that lineup, more so than they need a number 4, number 5 starter. And I think there was a little bit of a telltale sign in the postseason that in a couple of situations where the Royals needed to lengthen out their bullpen, they went to Michael Lorenzen before they went to Brady Singer. Brady Singer seemed like a last-ditch effort, and maybe they were saving him on the off chance they got past the Yankees and they needed somebody to start a postseason game. But if you're looking at a guy who's your number 4, and he gave you good enough numbers, but he didn't pitch in the postseason really, well, then maybe your answer's right there. It was great what he gave you, and he still was a big reason as to why your rotation had a big turnaround. But can you repeat those numbers with somebody else, maybe cheaper, and trade him away for a piece that can help your lineup? Because the lineup is what needs help. The lineup is what needs a boost. So these are conversations that are going to be had come winter meetings. I mean, I talked about an article I read on Bleacher Report last week about one player for each team that's likely to be traded or that they should look into trading. And for the Royals, it was Brady Singer. And I just don't see any other option that makes more sense than Brady Singer. Alec Marsh doesn't have a long enough track record to get a good return. Brady Singer was a former first-round pick. He was seen as the prize prospect of this organization for a while. He's had 2 successful big league seasons. Somebody's going to be desperate enough to make a trade for that, to bolster their rotation. And you might be able to get a bat that starts every single day in your lineup, or somebody or a couple of guys that are blocked that can help your team in 2025. But a lot of it is going to come down to the domino effect here. You trade Brady Singer, all right, you have to feel confident in who's replacing him. And as I said, I'm not sold that Brady Singer is going to repeat his numbers in 2025. I'm also not sold Alec Marsh takes the step forward. I'm not sold Noah Cameron can be a number 4, number 5 starter immediately in this rotation for a team that's competing for the postseason. I'm not sold Chris Bubich or Daniel Lynch or Kyle Wright's going into that spot. So to me, it's Alec Marsh or Brady Singer. Or you could have both of them and let, all the free agents pass that could be on a 1-year deal and could be a number 5 starter in your rotation. But to me, I truly feel like this is going to be one of the biggest talking points of the Royals going into winter meetings is if they will deal Brady Singer or decide to hang on to him. All right, we're going to take our first break of the show. When we come back, the Royals could also bring back another starter that could solve a lot of questions that I just asked in this segment. That's coming up on Locked On Royals. You are tuned into Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter or X at JohnnyJ_15. Want to give a shout out to our first sponsor in PrizePicks. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. PrizePicks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy, so your lineups stay in place even if one of your players gets injured. If your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, PrizePicks keeps your lineup live. It's also the best place to get real money sports action. Join over 10 million users and sign up today. And if you sign up today, you're going to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It is guaranteed. PrizePicks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday, where each Tuesday PrizePicks discounts select player projections up to 25% to even more value of your lineup. So download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup over at PrizePicks. In continuation of this conversation about Brady Singer, I think there is a chance you could look at bringing back somebody like Michael Lorenzen. And that would solve a lot of the questions I just asked about Alec Marsh. So in talking about this domino effect on what the Royals could anticipate or hope to see if they traded Brady Singer, well, you signed Michael Lorenzen back. And I thought Michael Lorenzen and the 30 innings that he threw and the 6 or 7 starts that he made, I mean, he was probably better than what Alec Marsh or Brady Singer showed at any point in a 5 to 6 start stretch. Very consistent. ERA was sub 1.6. I mean, it was ridiculous how easily he fit into the rotation. And he did get a couple of cracks out of the bullpen in the postseason. But if Michael Lorenzen signs for a deal, kind of what he got with Texas last year, I think you feel pretty good if Lorenzen stays healthy about your number 4 starter. Then it can make it likelier for you to trade somebody like Brady Singer if the right price happened. And you could go with Lorenzen as the 4 and Marsh as the 5. This is also assuming that you brought back Michael Wacha on a multiple-year deal. But this is also going to be factoring in the starting pitching market, where last year it was absurd what some guys were wanting to go for. So if the market goes that way for all the pitchers, then it's likely that Michael Lorenzen is not going to be coming back to Kansas City on a team-friendly deal. Michael Lorenzen could also be that pitcher that thinks to himself, well, I was banged up to close out 2024. I didn't really get a chance to maximize my value going into a contract year. So let me take another 1-year deal. I'll come back to Kansas City, who really boosted my numbers in the second half of the season, and then we'll test free agency next year. The other part to this, though, too, to kind of keep bouncing around, is I don't think that the starting pitching market is as elite in previous years. So Michael Lorenzen could think, hey, this is my best chance. This is my best chance to get a multiple-year deal. And I think if Michael Lorenzen wants more than a 1-year deal, I don't think that it's an option the Royals are going to take, because I don't see them giving Michael Wacha a multiple-year deal and then a guy like Michael Lorenzen a multiple-year deal. And that just doesn't feel too likely to me. But if he does want to take that 1-year deal, it allows you to do these other things with the rotation. It allows you to look into trading Brady Singer. It allows you to take a gamble, take a risk with a guy like Alec Marsh, where if you decide to let Michael Lorenzen walk in free agency and he signs elsewhere, and you put all your focus into Michael Wacha, well, then you're probably going to be hanging on to Brady Singer, and you're probably going to be running it back with Alec Marsh as the 5, which was your rotation at the beginning of 2024. It's not that would be a big issue, but that also means that you would need to be spending in free agency on bringing in 2 more bats to this lineup, where maybe you could take care of one of that through a trade. So that's that domino effect that I'm talking about. Is Lorenzen could be maybe the first piece in that. If they were to give him a 1-year deal, anywhere from $5 to $10 million, that would be incredibly cheap. If for whatever reason the Royals were not competing for a postseason spot, or they were hovering around 500, they could look into flipping him for maybe more bats or for younger prospects and kind of play the long game with it. There's a lot of different things you could do in bringing back Michael Lorenzen. But the best case is that you sign him to a 1-year deal. He pitches just as well as he did with the Royals in the short time he was there. Probably not over the course of a full season. He's going with a 1.57 ERA. But if he gives you anywhere from a 3.5 to a 4 ERA and 170 to 180 innings, kind of what Brady Singer gave you, then I don't think you can complain too much. I think you would feel very satisfied with that on a 1-year deal. But there just are questions to be answered about this rotation. And it's going to start with Michael Wacha. It's going to bleed down into the questions about Brady Singer. And then after that, you're going to be wondering about what guys they could bring in free agency. You're going to be wondering about what they could do with the AAA rotation, who could be ready to pitch in Kansas City at some point. If somebody from the bullpen wants to lengthen out and try to start in spring training, lots of that is going to be going on. But I just feel like they could simplify a lot. They could answer a lot of those questions by telling us how much they're willing to spend in free agency. I know that's not going to be something they outwardly say. I feel like the majority of their money would go towards bolstering this lineup and retaining Michael Wacha. But if they did want to strengthen this rotation, Michael Lorenzen might be one of your better and more affordable options to go for. And let us not lose sight of the fact that the Royals didn't have that swing starter last year, really until they got Lorenzen. They were gambling that all 5 guys were going to stay healthy for 162. You need to have a 6 starter or a 7 starter that you can turn to for a spot start, and not just somebody who can start, who was in AAA and you bring him up and he goes 4 innings, gives up 5 runs. You want somebody that can give you a chance to win. I believe Michael Lorenzen could do that. I believe Alec Marsh can do that. But it's going to come down to that pitching market and who some of the top guys are going to be linked to, what they're going to be going for. You hope that it's more so of a team-friendly market. It also comes down to the agents as well. That's another part I need to factor in here. There are just so many different outlets you turn to when free agency starts ramping up. Who's that player's agent? Do they want to go back closer to home? Do they want to go to a contender? Is money the most important? Do they want to go back to where an old pitching coach is? All those things are going to matter. But for Michael Lorenzen, I think he liked it in Kansas City. I think he liked the ballpark. I think he liked the defense that he was pitching for. It would be a very easy, plug and play where he's the number 4 guy. Alec Marsh could be the 5, and you could look into dealing Brady Singer. Or Alec Marsh is only tried as a bullpen guy. Your number 4 is Brady Singer. Your number 5 is Michael Lorenzen. Lots of different options that you could contemplate when trying to maybe bring him back. But to me, it might just matter whether Lorenzen wants a multiple-year deal, if he's willing to go on a prove-it deal again to get a bigger deal in free agency going into 2026. Those are all going to be ironed out with time and likely the closer that we get to winter meetings. All right, we're going to take our final break of the show. When we come back, let's dive into that fan interference last night in the World Series. I've got some thoughts on it, and we'll talk about it next on Locked On Royals. You are tuned into Locked On Royals on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter or X at JohnnyJ_15. Our last sponsor we want to give a shout out to is Gametime. I know the baseball season is almost wrapped up. Right now, the Dodgers lead 3-1 in the World Series against the Yankees. So if you're listening to this and you're out in New York or you're back in LA and you're thinking about buying those very expensive tickets for the World Series, do so over at Gametime. They're going to have the best deals for you. Turn on the notifications so they can tell you when prices are dropping, when they're going up, with the best deals they could be offering. And it's not just baseball games. It can be football games, basketball games, concerts, comedy shows, you name it. Gametime is going to have it. So here's what you need to do. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off on your first purchase. That's Locked On MLB, LOCKEDON MLB for $20 off on your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Last night, it was a runaway for the Yankees, really after the Anthony Volpe go-ahead grand slam, which was great for him. A Yankees fan growing up, idolized Derek Jeter, and then hitting a home run like that in the World Series at Yankee Stadium. A great moment. Whether you're a Yankees hater or not, you cannot deny that was a pretty awesome moment to witness, whether it be live or you saw the highlights after the game. However, the overarching memory that I am going to take away from Game 4 of the World Series in 2024 was the fan interference with Mookie Betts in the bottom of the first inning off the bat of Gleyber Torres, I believe it was. And it was something that I had truly never seen before. It was something that I don't even think is close to comparable with the Steve Bartman play, Jeffrey Mayer. It's not anything like those fan interference plays. This one crossed the line, in my opinion. And I am curious what some of the reaction in the comments is going to be, because I've seen really a differing point of view. A lot more people have come to the defense of these guys, mainly Yankees fans and guys that think it's funny, than I thought there would be. But overwhelmingly, it's a negative reaction to the two guys that were involved in trying to rip the ball out of the hands and the glove of Mookie Betts. The way that he reacted, he was pretty fired up about it. But then in postgame, he basically just said, all I care about is that we lost. And he handled it very professionally and good. He was in good spirits, basically. But I do believe that when you're dealing with a sport, when you are dealing with a sport of this magnitude, the World Series, whether it be the NBA Finals or the Super Bowl, you have to go above and beyond protecting the player, right? The players are who need to be protected in an environment like that. And in no way, shape, or form can a fan interfere with that. A fan cannot run onto the field. That's why it's dangerous at times, even though we laugh and chuckle at a streaker getting onto the field. It does put the players in the field at danger if they're not aware of the situation. They don't know the intention of the streaker. I know I'm getting into the nitty gritty of it. And more often than not, the streaker never goes at players. They just run around and hope to escape, and they're very unsuccessful the majority of the time. But in a situation like this, I just think it's crossing a line because, yes, Mookie Betts is going into foul territory. The ball is up for grabs near the fans, and if the fans that interfered did what Steve Bartman did, stuck his hands out and interfered with the glove, okay, it's accidental. You're trying to go for the ball. I'm trying to go for the ball. That can happen. It's incidental. Where the line was crossed is that Mookie Betts caught the ball, and you're grabbing his glove and trying to pry it open and get the ball. His buddy next to him is grabbing the wrist of Mookie Betts, and so both of his arms are being held down by these two fans just to get the ball out, which that was never going to be ruled foul. When Mookie Betts caught it, it was an out, and even if he didn't catch it, it would have been fan interference. So they didn't do anything to help the cause. And I know afterwards they said we treat that wall like it's our wall and we have to D up when the ball comes near us. And they had talked about it beforehand. They're season ticket holders, all of that involved. That's where you cross the line, because in situations like that, in my opinion, though it's not like Mookie Betts broke his wrist or sprained anything. That's not what I'm trying to say here. But you have that as a risk. And that's what can open up a huge problem in sports, is if Mookie Betts did get hurt or he was involved in a play that, went poorly with fans. I do feel like players, for the most part, are always asked to turn the other cheek. They're asked to look away. They could be out there in the outfield, or maybe they're on the field, they're on the court, and fans can say whatever they want. And in some places, they get away with just about anything. Not all the time, right? You go to some venues and you get kicked out for saying things that cross a line. You throw stuff on the field. Again, we saw this year at Dodger Stadium, there was stuff being thrown on the field. So it's not like every fan base is perfect and the Yankees are not. But this is a sort of an isolated incident in the postseason that I think you can really zero in on these guys and say that just doesn't belong in baseball. And there are Yankees fans. I saw today on Barstool too. They're getting promoted, they're being celebrated, and that's going to happen with situations like this. But to me, I'm all about protecting players, and it's a good thing that Mookie Betts didn't get hurt. They were rightfully ejected right after that. They're banned from tonight's game. I would be surprised if that's all the bans they got. I would be very surprised if they're only banned for one game at Yankee Stadium, the last home game of the year, regardless of what happens. I think it might carry into next year, but that's just me making assumptions at this point. But back to the point at hand here, fans at times, in my opinion, feel entitled to how they can behave at a sporting venue, a concert, because you paid for the tickets, right? I spent money here, which that part might be one of the worst things about this is you spend thousands of dollars, although they were season ticket holders. But in most scenarios, you spend thousands of dollars to get kicked out in the first inning. Just seems foolish, in my opinion. I think everybody would agree that would be foolish. But fans at times can feel entitled to acting a certain way in a seat because they paid for it. I paid X amount of money. I can say what I want. I can boo these players. If it's my home team, I can boo them. I paid for these tickets. Who are you to tell me to act this way? I do believe you under some limitations, right? If you're, around a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old, I don't condone just cursing left and right and screaming things at players. That you should know not to do that as an adult, but not everybody does. But in this situation, I think it kind of just goes without saying. When you are at a sporting event, you don't interfere with the players. You don't throw things at them. If they go into the crowd, you don't try to rough them up. You don't try to interfere with a ball going into the stand. It goes without saying, in my opinion. These two guys who had pre-planned this almost, it feels like, for however long, of if the ball came in their direction, they were going to do everything in their power if the Yankees were hitting to make sure that ball was not caught. And so they feel like they were doing it for the team. The Yankees did end up winning, and some Yankees fans feel like that was a spark that they were able to give the team. I think it was more so of the offense just catching fire, because I'm not sure the Yankees players really cared about a moment like that. But back to what really matters here, that just can't happen. That can't happen in any sport where a player can be interfered with like that. Could you put the player at danger? Those are the guys that you are out there to see. You are paying money to watch those players. Nobody came to see you. Nobody came to see you interfere with a foul ball. You can't have that type of stuff happening, right? If you incidentally reach over, you incidentally reach over. That's happened in baseball numerous times. If a player catches a ball and you're grabbing his glove and trying to rip it out, and your buddy's grabbing his other hand so he can't grab the ball, that's where it crosses the line. And I know a lot of people are very angry and upset by this, and as they should be, because those are two guys that might not be going to baseball games for a long, long time. All right, that's going to do it for another edition of Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I've been your host, Jack Johnson. Thank you for making Locked On Royals your first listen today. For your second, find Locked On MLB as baseball guru Sully brings a daily blend of humor and baseball, keeping you updated on every aspect of the playoff picture. Find Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Tomorrow, we're going to take a little bit of a look ahead into who could be available in the bullpen market in free agency. Might also take a little bit of a sneak peek into the awards when they're all going to be coming out and which Royals would have been nominated. So more of a full breakdown of that coming up tomorrow. And it will lead us into Friday, where we're going to have another Mailbag Friday. But until tomorrow, you take it easy, Kansas City.